Kicking things off on the OSU Roundup, Coach Gundy with us, and a lot of people have asked me, a big difference between the Kansas State game and your great win over Texas. How does such a significant change occur from one game to the other?
I wish I could tell you. I can give you some things that I think factored in. One, I thought our coaches did a tremendous job over the 2-week period. The open date came at a good time for us. We were able to evaluate a lot of different things with our football team and maybe come up with some answers. We had really quality practices. We didn't overdo it. We talked about that a week ago, that it wasn't a necessity for us to take the guys out there and just pound on them.
Right.
And the quarterback played better. And we had talked about after the Kansas State game, we had guys open and we actually blocked better than we did the first 3 or 4 weeks. He just didn't throw the ball very well. And unfortunately, or fortunately, in high school, college, and pro football, you kind of go as your quarterback goes in most cases, unless you're at a school or a team in the NFL where you can just dominate on defense. That's really the main thing that happened. But I will say that the crowd, Dave, the students, the homecoming, the evening game, the weather, everything tied in was fantastic. And this will be the last time I talk about it, because I did it on post-game, I did it on the radio with you guys, and I did it again in my media conference today, just thanking the people for being there. They didn't leave at halftime. And I'm always appreciative of our fans and what they do, because a lot of them have been around here for a long time and not had as much success as we'd want. But in order for this organization, this culture, this team to take the next step over a period of time, the players, the coaches, the administration, and the fans have to all do their part. And what they did Saturday night was their part. They made Boone Pickens a difficult place to play Saturday night. The team felt it, and I know Texas probably felt it. And so we all have a role to play. There's a lot of distractions. There's a lot going on now with flag football, dance competitions, Little League baseball, girls volleyball, all the things. But if you can make it to the game and you can do what you did last week, then our home field advantage will be an issue for every team coming in here. And that's their part, in my opinion. And that's the chicken and the egg theory. What comes first, us winning or the fans? Well, we got to do it at the same time. So that played a big role. But overall, guys played with confidence. We were good on special teams other than kicking field goals. I know that's a big part, but Texas is scary on special teams because they're so athletic. Our coverage units were good, and our kicker kicked the ball well. The first one went out of bounds, but other than that, he was good. We didn't give up a lot of big plays on defense. We covered better against long, tall receivers that I know that you were concerned about, and so was I. Our guys were in proximity. They hit throws, but they hit them when we were covering them. You can live with that. I mean, that's the way it is. And we had guys make big-time plays on offense. And in the first half, our offensive line blocked them, and they blocked them really well.
You were talking about Cornelius. The reality is he is a first-year starting quarterback. I've gone back and looked at the stats from Josh Fields when he was in his first full year as a starter. You can go back and take a look at Mason Rudolph. Mm-hmm. The fact is those numbers compared to Taylor's numbers are very similar through a 6 or a 7 game run. So is there kind of an aha moment that happens for a quarterback, and what evolves for a quarterback in that first year? What helps make that change and that improvement?
You and I have talked about this. I know just myself, and it was a different game in the late 80s, but I felt like after 12 or 14 games that I started to understand, and the game slowed down for me, and it wasn't so blurry. It's kind of the old coaching theory that, if you have a cloudy mind, you got slow feet because you don't move fast because you don't know what direction you're going. His mind is starting to clear, in my opinion, where he can play faster. And I think our team played that way as a group. I think we minimized them. I know we minimized mistakes. And so he's getting into, now would be game 9, and just experience. I know he's 24 years old. I know he's been around forever, but he hasn't really played and been out there when it mattered. And so he's starting to get it. The guy's got the heart of a lion. I mean, his composure and his competitiveness is awesome, and we should all be very thankful for what he gave us on Saturday night.
We'll have more with Coach Gundy when we come back on the OSU Roundup. The OSU Roundup is brought to you by Bud Light, game day's favorite light lager. By the visitstillwaterok.org Shop, Dine, and Stay partners. Be sure to shop, dine, and stay in America's friendliest college town. By Mercy Health, your life is our life's work. And by OG&E, power at the speed of life. Back on the OSU Roundup as we continue with Coach Gundy, one theme is very consistent during the off week, and you've kind of touched on it, is simplifying things on both sides of the ball. How much do you think that impacted the team's play?
I'm fairly certain it played a big role in that, as I said earlier, if you're cloudy, you're not playing very fast. And I don't think that I've done a good job this year of managing simplicity. You've been around a lot. I'm kind of involved in the offense and talk during the week in meetings and stuff. I don't get involved much in practice and don't do a lot of play calling. Defensively, even less, because that's not really the world I live in. But I've always been more involved in simplicity in all the phases and how much that we can do. It's not as easy as saying, well, just run 3 plays on offense and just have 3 or 4 plays on defense, because if you don't have enough to offset what they're doing in all 3 phases, then you're going to get you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're not going to be happy, because they're going to come up with what you're doing. So there's a real fine line in how much you can do in all 3 phases and what you can actually get accomplished. And so I thought our coaches did a great job, and I tell them this. Kind of the harsh reality of my job is to go in on Sunday and say, myself or the staff, we were either really good or we were average here, or we weren't very good, guys. And the real illustration of how well we coach during the week is the way the players play on Saturday. They're going to tell you how well you coached them. And forever coaches can say this guy can do this or this player couldn't do that. Well, that's our job to know that. And they gave us a good illustration of we did a good job of coaching. And so I shared that with them. I said, you guys did a good job. I just watched the game against a good team. And so the simplicity is very important for us right now. We have young safeties, a new quarterback, and really, for lack of a better term, an inexperienced offensive line with musical chairs. So the one thing we need to do is make sure we know what direction we're going so we can go really fast.
Can that snowball confidence-wise? Because I would guess that if a player doesn't know what he's doing, it's hard to be confident. At the same time, when he gets comfortable with what he's doing, they played like a very confident football team against Texas. Is this something that can really snowball as guys feel like, hey, I know what I'm doing, and they just get more and more confident?
I hope so. I'm starting to get a pretty good feel for our guys, but the thing that's interesting in this conference is I think Oklahoma and West Virginia have kind of showed up to this point that they've separated themselves just from the scores and the way they've played. But the rest of us have all beat up on each other based on taking care of the football, limited missed assignments, and limited big plays on defense. And this will be an interesting game because Baylor's right in that mix. They beat Kansas State, could have beat Texas. They got out in West Virginia, turned the ball over a bunch, and it went downhill on them fast. That can happen. So we'll find out a lot more, but I'm hoping that the players will develop that confidence in themselves based on the game plan that our coaches put together and asked them to execute on Saturday.
Stay with us. More to come on the OSU Roundup.
Welcome back to the OSU Roundup. I'm Allison Gabbick here with Coach Mike Boynton. We are at OSU Basketball's Media Day in Gallagher-Iba Arena, and you guys are a couple weeks into practice, but you got to see your team this summer, a 10-day European tour. What was that like for you guys?
It was awesome. It was easily, personally, for me, one of the top 5 experiences that I've had in my life, but it was certainly more for the team and the opportunity for these guys to experience life outside this country. For a bunch of new guys, a pretty new team, an opportunity for these guys to get to know each other and see how their talents can start to mesh for a basketball season.
I imagine it helps with, team bonding and team chemistry, but you guys also, kind of get to see this really young team on the court sooner. How much did that help the development there?
It helped a ton. The most important thing we were able to do was have 10 practices before we left, and we used that opportunity to kind of establish with the new guys what our program is about and really put them through the grind of some practices and put them in some teachable situations where they can learn the nuts and bolts of who we are on both the offensive and defensive ends.
It is such a young team, but you've got some experienced guys on and off the court, and your captains that you named, and Lindy Waters and Cam McGriff and Thomas DeZagua. How important are those guys to you, to your program?
Well, I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say that they're really important to whatever success this team has, because they've been through everything that these freshmen are going to go through for the first time. They've been in Allen Fieldhouse and know what it's like to go in there and how hard it is to come out with a win. But they've done it. They've been to Morgantown, West Virginia twice and know how hard it is to come out with a win in that environment. But they've done it. And so they've been through a lot of ups and downs, a couple coaching changes, some other off-the-court stuff. So those guys are pretty hardened in terms of understanding that you got to overcome some adversity, but you know, we feel like we got the right pieces with those guys leading our team.
In terms of, you know, different style of play, just because of such different personnel, will this year's OSU fans see a different style of play from this team?
Yeah, a little bit. I would say we'll be fairly similar in terms of, you know, again, the meat and potatoes of who we are. We're going to be a hard-nosed, tough, defensive-minded team first and foremost. That won't ever change. But how we get points,
Right.
We don't have Jeff Carroll, right?
Yeah.
We don't have Kendall Smith, who was notorious for making big shots, and you felt good having him on the court in late games. Those players have to emerge and show themselves capable of doing those things. And I feel confident that we got the right pieces. We have a great coaching staff that's able to develop their talent. And so I feel like at some point soon, the light will turn on. And when people start showing up, they'll see exactly the type of talent that we're starting to bring in.
Who could you see as some of those big potential scorers for you?
Well, certainly Lindy has the potential. He's shown for the last 2 years that he's capable of having great success against some of the best teams we played. Cam McGriff played his best basketball in Big 12 play last year. But a guy like Mike Cunningham, who's been a double-digit scorer for 3 years in college basketball, also has that experience. So those probably just, you start with those three, and you just kind of see how the freshmen adapt to different environments. We start the season on the road, which is unusual. And so those guys will be faced with a lot of different challenges as the season gets going.
Any other newcomers or freshmen that are picking up things up quickly?
You know, Isaac Likely of the 5 freshmen is probably separate himself a little bit more than the others in terms of his ability to grasp things quicker. Really, really bright kid, really competitive, multi-dimensional.
Joined now by Coach Jim Littell. We're here at Basketball Media Day at Gallagher-Iba Arena. And Coach, a couple weeks into practice, what do you expect from this year's team?
Well, we're very excited about Allison. We got a lot of new faces. There's been a lot of teaching going on. We're putting in a new system. So it's an exciting time. I'm excited to coach a different style. We've been very post-oriented. We did have Lauren Goodwin last year and Braxton Miller, some quality guards, but we always relied a lot on Kaylee Jensen. This year, we're going to be a little more guard-oriented. Hopefully, we'll run a little bit more, shoot the three, be a little more liberal in doing that, and space out the scoring a little bit more.
A lot of strength and depth for you at guards. Talk a little bit about those players.
You know, we're really young at that position, but we feel good about it. We do have Carly Wheeler that returns for her senior year. Jaden Hobbs has had a lot of experience in the program. Junior in the classroom, sophomore in terms of eligibility. Braxton Miller was a first-team all-conference freshman and a preseason all-conference pick. I've had a young lady, Vivian Gray, come in. Bryn Gerlich coming in as a freshman. Jamie Asbury at a point guard as a freshman. So we got a lot of pieces to the puzzle. They're young, they're learning on a daily basis, but I like our team.
You mentioned a different style of play, and that's partly because you lose Kaylee Jensen, who led the league last year in rebounding, and also Lauren Goodwin, who was a WNBA draft pick. How do you replace those two, and how much does it really affect the style of play?
Well, it affects the style of play, what you do offensively and defensively, but it doesn't change the expectations. We expect to compete for championships, get to the NCAA tournament, make a deep run. So that mentality is never going to change here, but we do have to have some of these young players come of age. Our seniors also, Carly Wheeler, Maria Castro, Tasha Jones, they've been in the program, but they didn't gain as much experience, so they're going to have to to really have great years for us. We're counting on our seniors.
All right, looking forward to another great season from you guys. We'll be right back on the OSU Roundup.
We continue on the OSU Roundup. Oklahoma State, of course, faces Baylor in Waco this weekend, and there have been some big games between Oklahoma State and Baylor in recent years, games that had major implications in the Big 12 Conference race. We'll focus on a couple of them. First, let's go back to 2010, the first weekend of November. Baylor came to Stillwater to face the Pokes. These two teams were tied for first place in the Big 12, but the Cowboys dominated this game from the start. Justin Blackmon had a huge game, 13 catches for 173 yards, and this 5-yard TD grab that started the scoring. He also had this big play, a 69-yard touchdown run in the third quarter. That put the Cowboys up 34-0. Brandon Weeden was outstanding. In fact, he was named Big 12 Conference Player of the Week for his great effort. Weeden, 24 of 42 passing for 435 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Cowboys rolled to victory 55-28. 3 years later, in 2013, a primetime national television audience watching the Cowboys and Bears battle on a cold Saturday night in late November. Once again, first place in the Big 12 on the line. This was a memorable night for Oklahoma State, especially for quarterback Clint Chelf. Chelf had the best game of his Oklahoma State career. He was 19 of 25 passing for 370 yards and 3 touchdowns, including this 56-yard home run TD pass to Tracy Moore that put the Pokes up 21-3 early in the third. Moore had a big game as well, 5 catches for 126 yards. The defense was outstanding against a great Baylor offense, especially in the red zone. Tyler Patman helped put an exclamation point on the Cowboy victory. How about this sequence? A 78-yard fumble return for a touchdown. Moon Pickens Stadium went crazy, and the Cowboys rolled to victory 49-17 over the Bears. Stay with us. Coach Gundy offers more thoughts on the matchup with Baylor when we return. Back to wrap things up on the OSU Roundup, and you touched on Baylor earlier in the show, but what specific improvements have you seen from the Bears? They're trying to get bowl eligible.
Well, they play really hard. They do a lot on defense. They're a very aggressive, blitzing style defense, probably more than we've seen in a long time. Offensively, their quarterbacks made plays. I like the way their quarterback's improved. He's way better, in my opinion, just in the overall picture and the scheme of things than he was at this time last year. He's experienced because he's young, right? Isn't he just a sophomore?
Yes.
And he played some last year early in his career, and I'm sure he made mistakes that it was due to youth. They're running the zone play. Quarterback's running it some. They're RPOing it, throwing the ball in the middle of the field. They got a couple long, tall guys that can catch the ball. Defensively, as I said, they're really aggressive. I mean, they're going to come after you and blitz you. They're going to make you pick it up, and they're going to make you try to find a way to handle pressure. So we'll have to be real smart in the way we handle it in all 3 phases.
For Coach Gundy and Allison Gappa, I'm Dave Hunziker. Thanks for watching the OSU Roundup. The OSU Roundup is brought to you by Bud Light, game day's favorite light lager. By the visitstillwaterok.org, Shop, Dine, and Stay partners. Be sure to shop, dine, and stay in America's friendliest college town. By Mercy Health, your life is our life's work. And by OG&E, power at the speed of light.